switches aren't just for lights. They're for dogs, too. That's exactly what we're talking about. Welcome back to the McCann Dogs Podcast. Well, Honda, being 15 years old, and our studio dog today, he's wandering around in the studio and he's trying to find anything. Well, you know what? Probably that kibble.
There's one kibble on the floor, and it's lost to Honda. He doesn't have good eyesight anymore, and he's completely deaf. So
poor little old
all
dog.
he has is that nose, and he's
it's failing him right now.
He's failing. He's smelling everywhere except for the right spot.
I think he's just discerning in his taste, and he's decided he does not want that kibble.
Right. Yes.
It's somebody else's. It was left behind, and it's sitting on the floor.
Right.
And
yes.
you want me to eat somebody else's kibble left behind, sitting on the floor? Are you kidding?
Exactly.
Honda.
I need a
You
kibble.
know who I am? I am the podcast mascot.
It's fit for royal. I need a kibble that is fit for royalty.
Exactly.
This is a pauper's kibble.
Yes. Definitely.
Now the kibble is caught in the loop of his leash, and now it's following him.
This entire episode is going to be on the kibble. You know what? When he does find that kibble finally, we'll let everybody know.
Yes.
Alrighty. I was going to say Honda at 15 has a lovely off switch. And that's why he's able to join us here in the studio and just kind of wander around and sniff things because he's not this, hyper excited young dog who is looking for stuff to entertain.
Right. Yes, he does. He knows he doesn't need to be the center of attention.
Yeah, exactly. And oh, he's close. Is he going to get it? Oh. He got it. Yay! He found and ate the kibble.
Yes.
Okay, so you know what? He doesn't mind being a pauper.
Nope.
It's
He
all
will
good.
eat the kibble.
All right.
Look at
So our topic today is going to be all about creating the off switch. And
yes.
What's an off switch? What do I mean when I say an off switch?
An off switch is a dog that can be calm and chill and just hang out.
Yeah, absolutely. And we get these questions so often because a lot of our puppies have tons of energy. We've got our Puppy Essentials program, and a lot of times people are saying, how do I get this puppy to calm down? And here's the thing, when we have our youngsters, they don't self-regulate yet, which is basically having the ability to conserve energy for times when you'll need it. They don't have that instinct yet.
They have two modes, basically. Yeah. It's either 100 miles an hour or flat out asleep.
Exactly.
There's no in between.
Exactly. And me having he just turned 14 weeks this week, a 14-week-old Nova Scotia Duck
He's elderly, 14
puppy.
Weeks? That's an elderly puppy.
He's just old as snot now. You know what? That's an expression that my partner uses, and I have I've never...
I thought you were going to say old as dirt. And I was surprised what came out of your mouth.
Well, it didn't even occur to me that it was coming out of my mouth until I had dropped it. And then I thought, probably nobody else understands that expression either because I don't. He also uses it with fast as snot. Oh. And I always think
well, it does come out of you fast sometimes.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I usually wipe it before I time it. This is the radar guns out. Anyways, I digress.
Yes.
Alrighty. So, being 14 weeks old, being an energetic breed, Nova Scotia Duck Tolling Retrievers are pretty, he's good. He's fine. Nova Scotia Duck Tolling Retrievers can be pretty excitable dogs, pretty energetic dogs. That's what I want. I want a puppy, and I want a dog that says, we're going to go do scent work. All right, let's go. We're going to go do obedience. All right, let's go. We're going to go do field work. All right, let's go. I don't want a couch potato type of dog that goes, nah, I don't really want to go for a walk. I don't really want to do that.
Are there dogs like that?
There are some dogs like that, yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right, no.
If you wanted an English Mastiff, let's say.
Right, yeah.
That dog's not going to spend a lot of time running around. As puppies, they all have energy.
Right.
But most of the time when we get the breeds that are appropriate for us, things go so much more swimmingly.
Exactly,
so
yes.
if you know what you're looking for in advance, and be honest with yourself, we've done episodes on finding the right breed for you, but be honest with yourself. If you know you have a certain energy level, you'd rather get home at the end of a long work day and put your feet up and watch TV for the evening versus having to entertain and train a dog. A dog like an English Mastiff is probably going to be a great dog
a
for
greyhound.
You. Oh, yeah.
Greyhound.
Or if you needed to have something a little bit smaller, you look into some of the small breeds that don't have quite as much energy.
Right.
But having said that, even the dogs that don't have quite as much energy, they still need an off switch.
They
I
do.
firmly believe that. Do you believe that?
I believe that, yes.
Yeah.
Like, I would classify Honda as not a high-energy dog, but he does
and Honda is?
He's a Chinese crested powder puff.
And a cutie pie.
He's the coated version of the Chinese crested, which is normally hairless. But he's still, even though I'd say he's low-key, he still likes to play and have fun. And
That's because he's part Ewok.
yeah.
He's a mix of a Chinese crested powder puff and an Ewok. That's actually what this dog is. If you saw a picture of him, you would agree with me.
But even last night, I was here teaching classes, and I got home around 10:30 last night, and he wanted to play. Even at the age of 15, he still wanted to play, and
So-
I was tired.
I was just going to ask
But
that.
he was dropping a toy in my lap, and luckily Honda's small enough that I can throw a toy in my living room.
Okay.
And that satisfies him. But if he was, say, a Border Collie or an Australian Shepherd, 6 toy tosses across the living room is not going to satisfy that dog. So, I was glad that I could just sit on the couch, toss the toy a few times, and that was that. I didn't have to worry about big entertainment at 10:30 at night.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm barely ever awake at 10:30 at night these days, so I don't even know what happens at that time. It could literally be a completely different world.
Right?
I would have no idea.
Well, yeah, as soon as you go to bed, we bring out the party. The world is fabulous. Yes.
Okay, she's down.
Yeah.
Let's rock. Oh my gosh. Alrighty, so 10:30 at night, and he wanted to play. So in a different scenario where you really were exhausted and didn't want to have to throw that toy, say this was a really arduous task to throw this toy 6 times across the living room for your dog, and you decided that was just too much work. What would be some of your go-to tactics? What are some of the things that you've taught him over his lifetime that you now rely on that you can use that off switch with him with?
Well, probably my biggest go-to would be to ask him to go and lie down on his bed.
Love that.
So I would maybe, go in the kitchen, look for a chew toy, get it out, bring it to him, come on, go lie down in your bed, and then reward him with that chew toy. And then he can lay and chew on that toy on the bed, get a little bit of energy out by chewing. And plus he's relaxing and his body is calming down for the evening.
Perfect. I love that. And I would assume that expecting him to go and lie down on the bed and relax and chew something, you've spent time teaching him that.
Yes. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah,
So this
exactly.
is something we started when he was right from a puppy with all my dogs, is going and lying on a bed when asked is something that you have to do. And it's something that's pleasant.
Yeah.
I'm going to make that a valuable thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know people are listening right now who have puppies who are like, my puppy just grabs the bed and shakes it and pulls it around the living room. And my puppy doesn't want to lie down on the bed. That's the last thing they want to do. So we're going to talk about the idea that this actually is a skill, needs to be taught. Dogs don't have any sort of understanding of a bed per se until we spend time teaching them what they're supposed to do with it. So we'll talk about some of the steps that we take to actually teach that today as well. I just want to jump on one thing that you said. You were talking chew toy. I want to make sure that we clarify for everybody what a safe chew toy is for our dogs. So we don't ever allow our dogs to chew on what we call interactive toys. What would an interactive toy be?
An interactive toy would be a soft plush animal type toy. Often the ones you buy at pet stores that are shaped like a pig or a cow and they have a squeaker inside them. Or maybe a toy that's made entirely out of rope or some other fabric. So interactive toys are toys that can be torn up quickly and destroyed if a dog so chooses.
Yes. Yeah. And we don't like to let our dogs chew on those toys. So supervised or unsupervised, those toys can be a danger. It's pretty expensive too if you're having your dog tear through all sorts of plush toys all the time. But the stuffing and the outside of those toys can be incredibly dangerous because, of course, our dogs want to chew apart things and ingest them. And that often ends up in a bit of a disastrous situation. Foreign body extraction surgery is done quite often on dogs who like to eat things they shouldn't.
Yep.
So as much as possible, you want to make your life easier and not give them that opportunity. Some of those rope toys, just even pulling one thread of those tied up knotted rope toys, that can be a disaster for a dog because, of course, it may or may not pass through easily. So always good to use due caution. And when you pick a chew toy per se, like quote unquote chew toy, what would that look like?
So a chew toy might be a nylon type bone. Now, one that is, that's durable, not one of the kind of the gummy nylon ones, one that is rigid. It might be a Benebone, which is another type of nylon bone. It might be a material made out of the Kong rubber. So the Kong rubber is very, very durable.
We love Kongs.
The red ones and black ones, black being the strongest, red being next strongest. Or it might be maybe an edible chew that I know is safe, possibly one of the bully sticks, or maybe one of the yak milk chews.
Milk,
they do well with Honda. Maybe an antler toy. So it's a toy either that is indestructible, somewhat like a nylon bone, or an edible chew toy that is safe.
Completely edible and safe, yeah. Lots of caveat warnings about rawhide. I think that rawhide is very passé these days. I don't even see it as much.
No, we don't hear much about
when
rawhide.
I'm out there shopping around for things and finding new things. But just a word of warning, if rawhide is the thing that you see or think of when you think of an edible for the dogs, they're very treated, they're very chemical based, and they can cause blockage.
Yes.
Because they don't digest. You know, a cow's hide is a very powerful thing. It's a very strong thing.
Right.
You wear it for leather, you know, it doesn't break down and digest like, say, a bully stick would, which is a completely digestible tendon, pulled tendon, baked. I don't know how they prepare.
Right. Yes. And if you ever,
I'm laughing because of what they're actually made of.
right,
but.
yes. Now there are some rawhide chews called no hide, and they're not really rawhide, but they look like the traditional rawhide, but they're made out of collagen and they are digestible. I do give them to Honda, but they don't last that long.
Okay.
So, you know, keep in mind too, some of these chews can cost a fortune and they last all of 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's another consideration too.
Absolutely. I think there's probably a lot of, I haven't tried again and I should. Reggie actually went through one of the Yak's Milk Chew pieces.
Right.
Like that and ended up throwing up pieces of it.
Oh, right.
So I had never gone back to the Yak's Milk Chew, but a lot of people swear by them. So I'm wondering if maybe the one I got just wasn't
depends
a good
on the
quality.
brand.
I don't know.
Yeah, like I've had good luck. There's ones that I find that are I purchase and they have just a red ribbon tied around them with there's no packaging on them.
Okay.
It's just a red ribbon tied around them with the name of the company. And they seem to have done very well for my dogs. Now I've also bought some ones that have been in packaging and that have not done well. The dogs have gotten chunks off them, thrown them up.
Pretty sure mine was in a package and I opened it and
So I think there's, you know, every manufacturer probably has a slightly different process. So if you can find one that's good, you know, like I really like these ones with just a simple red ribbon around them.
Gotcha. I'll have to get the name off you. Off you later. Couldn't get that out. Could not do it. All right, so choose your chew toys wisely too. Like not all dogs do well with the same thing. When I have a youngster, like right now with my pup, for example, when he gets something that's different or new, he gets it for a very short period of time initially because I want to see how he reacts to that. So if I were to give him a Yak's Milk Chew at this point, I would probably leave it with him for 5 or 10 minutes as I supervised his chew, and then I would remove it and I would wait 24 hours and just make sure it sat well with his system.
Yes.
So I do that with food too, any new treats, things like that. I'm always very cautious and usually it works out just fine. I see the next day, all poop is normal. There's no diarrhea, there's no warning signs of anything to be concerned about and life goes on, but you just never know.
Right. Yes.
And a lot of the times rich things, especially like, which I would think Yak's Milk Chew might be a little bit rich. The antler,
the marrow
might be a bit rich. Yeah. I do feed raw sometimes, and I'll feed raw marrow bones. The marrow is very rich. So there are certain things that are probably going to be overwhelming to the system when they're new. So I'm always a little bit cautious with that.
Yes.
So little caveats about chewing. But yeah, I love that idea though of using the chew toy to help the dog learn to relax on the bed. And the thing that we really need to remember with dogs is they will do what they rehearse.
Right.
So if we throw a bed down for our puppy and we let our puppy go, oh, this is a fun new big squishy toy, and we let them chew it and we let them thrash with it and we let them pull it around the room and we let them just have a good party with it, they're going to think it's a great toy.
Right. And often it's cute.
Yeah.
So often when you have an 8-week-old puppy.
That's the downfall.
Right, yes. You have an 8-week-old puppy and you get this big fluffy bed and then he starts dragging it around. Like, nobody can help but smile and laugh at that because that is
out the
adorable.
camera.
Right.
Look at him. Look at him. I'm going to share with all my Facebook
Yes.
friends. Look how funny he is.
Right. But what we don't realize is the puppy is learning something there. He's learning it's okay to pull and chew and drag a fluffy bed. And in fact, the humans laugh when you do it.
Yes, absolutely. And it's fun.
Yes.
So while the puppy's doing that, he's having fun. He's getting reinforcement from that. And of course, that's going to build his desire to continue doing that same thing moving forward, which is exactly what ends up being what they rehearse is what they're going to end up doing. So rehearsal predicts behavior. If they're allowed to grab that bed and throw it around the room, that is going to become the thing they want to do when they see the bed. And understandably so, you know. If my only response to seeing an ice cream cone is that I get to eat it, chances are when I see that ice cream cone, I'm going to want to eat it.
Keep your children away from Shannon with their ice cream cones.
I have had problems in the past stealing children's ice cream cones. No, I do love ice cream though. Oh my gosh. I keep talking about it lately. It must be the heat.
But yes.
We're in such a hot, I mean,
a heat wave.
A lot of the world right now is in a heat wave, but wow, what a heat wave for June.
It is a heat wave, yes.
We're recording in June and it's shocking. It's like we're a month ahead. I said to Kip the other day, this is like end of July, early August weather.
Well, I heard the prediction that this is our summer. We're going to be getting a lot of hot, humid temperatures.
Yeah. Do you think it'll last the entire duration that the summer normally would, though?
I don't know.
Like, I feel like we're early, and maybe we're going to get like and September. It's going to start being really, really cold instead of that nice. I like September weather.
Yes, but it's too hot to do anything. Like the only thing you can do is go to the pool or go to the beach. Anything else is too hot
or melt.
Yes.
Lay down somewhere and melt. Alrighty, so back to creating the off switch.
Oh, and now. Also, another thing, too, with a bed, when I have a young puppy, a great big, fluffy, cushy bed is hard for the puppy to resist. Yes. So that's not the dog's first bed.
Yeah,
I usually start with something really easy. I'll get a carpet remnant or maybe a bathroom mat that's not too fluffy, something that's kind of boring.
Yeah.
And that's usually my dog's first bed that I'm going to send them to because that's not... It's not teasing them. A big fluffy bed is often just teasing them.
Well, it looks and it feels just like their toys do. Yes. You know, our tug toys when we play with them. So of course, I like the sort of like I guess they're crate pad beds.
Yeah. So I know which ones you mean.
Yeah, they're not like really fluffy in any way. They're washable, which is nice.
Washable is a priority.
Washable everything, right? Especially if it's going to have stuffing in it. You want it to unzip. You want the cover to come off. You want to be able to throw it in the washing machine. Puppies are messy little creatures, you know? It's not their fault. They just are. There's all sorts of things that go on. You just never know what's going to happen.
Yep.
So we want to be able to wash things.
Yes.
Everything in my house is washable.
Yes.
After being in dogs for... I don't know. I can't even remember how many years. 25-ish. We're 2024. 25 years now. Everything that I own is washable, including couch covers and bed covers and, you know, all like mattress protection pads and all that stuff. It's all washable because that's nice.
Right. Dogs, dogs get dirty.
Yeah. So invest in a bed that is not going to be tempting to chew and that has a washable cover on it, and you will be very, very happy. Right. Now, what are some of the things that you do to introduce the bed? So you've been very clear that we're not just going to throw the bed down and let the puppy have their way with it, so to speak. So how are you introducing the bed to the puppy?
Well, I'm going to put the bed on the floor and I'm going to let the dog, sniff around and investigate it. And then I'm going to start making it valuable. I am going to put treats on the bed.
Perfect.
Maybe I'll feed the dog on the bed.
Okay.
We're going to make that mat something that a lot of fun happens on. So I'm going to...
calm fun, right?
Calm fun. Yeah. Yes. So we're going to create value by putting great chews on it. We're going to create value by putting great treats on it. We're going to create, I'm going to put their food bowl on it.
Yeah.
Things that the dog says, hey, I like going to this mat because things appear when I'm here.
Yeah. Now, here's a question for you. When you're not actually working with the puppy, with the bed and showing them what they're supposed to do on the bed, do you leave it down?
No, I pick it up.
Ah, good call.
Yeah, bed goes away.
Yeah,
yes.
Me too. And why do you do that?
Well, I don't want the dog to go over and start to chew on it or interact with it in a bad way. some dogs might go over and pee on it when they're a baby puppy. You never know what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
So the bed's only out at the beginning so I can make sure everything good happens with that bed.
Yeah. What we do with dog training is we try our best to manipulate the situation so it works out in our favor, because this makes our lives easier, right?
Yes.
If I leave the dog bed down, it gives my puppy an opportunity to rehearse things I don't want them rehearsing. If I take the dog bed up and it's only down when I'm working with it, I'm controlling what they can rehearse. Right. And that makes all the difference in future outcomes. And that's the part that people often will shoot themselves in the foot a little bit with, is they will allow all of the things to happen thinking that they can come back and teach the obedience later. And really, it just makes your life twice as difficult, because now you have to come back from the understanding that the puppy can chew on the bed and play with the bed, etc. You have to eliminate that problem, or potentially eliminate that habit at that point. And then you also have to teach them what they should do. So really, we just cut out that whole middle section and we teach them what they should do right from the beginning. We make that the valuable choice. So I'm doing this with Levon right now. He is starting early bed introductions at this point at 14 weeks of age. And basically all he has learned about the bed is that I lure him onto it. He gets lots of food when he's on it. And then I release him back off of it. And he's at the point where he's starting to say, oh, when that bed appears, I jump on it and I get rewards. So now he's already noting that getting on top of the bed is the preferred behavior. And this is brand new for him, basically. But getting on top of the bed is the preferred behavior. And when I release him, he can come off the bed. But there's no opportunity in there for him to dig. There's no opportunity for him to grab it with his teeth and start pulling it around the living room. There's no opportunity for him to tug on it and, thrash with it and have a party with it.
Yes.
The only thing that he's getting to do, because he's engaged with me, right? Because he's engaged with me, I'm actively working with him. I'm showing him what I want to do. And then as soon as we're done with that training session, the bed goes away.
Right.
So then the next time the bed comes out, the same thing happens. He rehearses what I want him to do again. The bed goes away. And eventually we get to the point where the rehearsal has worked in my favor now. So it's so much easier to set your training up that way and be proactive with things and not let the dog rehearse the wrong things.
Right. I've said it before on the podcast, we don't want to allow little puppies to do anything that we wouldn't allow the adult dog to do.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
If I don't want my adult dog to tear apart their bed, then I can't allow the little puppy to begin to play with it.
Yeah,
It's going to snowball on me.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then snow in your house with all the fuzzies from the bed.
And I think sometimes we forget, as humans, sometimes we're innocent and we put down this big cushiony dog bed and we think the puppy's going to appreciate having a soft bed.
Yeah.
But puppies don't understand what beds are.
No.
They don't get it. Like our toddlers, humans, they understand what a bed is. It's for sleeping in. But our puppies don't.
No.
They think it's a toy.
And I would say 9 times out of 10, I've never had a dog that will happily have a bed in their crate. They just don't. I mean, I think Reggie probably, once he was pretty old, like once he was 13 or 14, he appreciated the bed and he appreciated the warmth. But the rest of his life, if I tried to put a bed in his crate, he would just push it off
They
to
often,
the side.
kick it to the side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and even just in our own classes, we teach go to a mat in our in-person classes. And we encourage the students to bring their mat and put it beside themselves. And I notice a lot of the dogs now, especially that it's getting hotter, don't want to lay on their mats. And a lot of the dogs are out in front of the human or off the beds.
Yeah.
So I'll say, okay, let's, the dog doesn't want to be on it. It's too hot. Let's move that bed over. And the dog goes right to their side.
Yeah.
So dogs don't often need that bed. They don't appreciate them in the way that we do.
Yeah, it's not the same thing. They're not going to automatically want to go, oh, that's cushy. I'm going to curl up and be
right.
comfy
Yes.
in
Now some
here.
dogs do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some dogs do. Like Cowboy, my Saluki, she could spot a dog bed 10 miles away.
Understandably. And remind us what kind of dog Cowboy was.
She was a Saluki, so she
and
was
how much coat she had.
She had basically hardly any fur and very little body fat. So
Bred
she
for
was
desert.
Yeah, basically like a walking bone. She was like a walking skeleton, and so she understood comfort and appreciated it.
Yes.
But say my corgis, who have like a quite a good little covering of body fat over them, they didn't need a bed. They were quite pleased to lay on the hard floor.
Yeah. Well, and my tollers with the coats that they have, even the ones that haven't had a lot of coat, they have really no use for their beds and their crates. So Levon lost his bed and his crate at 10 weeks because he was already trying to shred it. Like he's been a voracious chewer. Oh my goodness. such a powerful little chewer. So yeah, he was already destroying a bed at 10 weeks of age. So he lost it at that point. And, you know, it's going to be a bit before he gets one introduced again. And I would be very surprised if when I put one back in, like, you know, once he's got reliable chewing habits again, and there's not going to be a potential for him to harm himself when he's crated and I'm not watching, at that point, I will reintroduce a bed in his crate to see if he wants something to snuggle up with, but I'd be really surprised if he actually used it. Learn how to teach your dog a great bed stay in our online life skills program, where you'll get to work with myself and the rest of the McCann Dogs team to create a wonderful off switch with your dog. For me, the bed is usually the transition to outside of the crate. That's how I use it in my house. Yeah, I'm guessing you use your crates quite a bit when you have young puppies and you can't supervise. And then do you use the bed as like the transitional point when you're trying to help them come out of the crate and spend more time out?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yes. And you know, we always call it a bed, but a bed to me conjures up the big fluffy dog bed. So it's more of a mat.
Okay.
I use more of a mat, and the mat is easy for me to take places.
Yeah.
So I'm in the living room. I put down the mat. The dog can go there. Now we go to the kitchen. I might bring the mat. The dog can go there. I go to visit my parents. I bring my dog's mat. I go to a hotel, I bring the dog's mat. So it's something that's easy and portable. I've even brought a mat going to, say, a Starbucks to an outdoor patio.
Perfect.
And the mat is easy to fold. I fold it up. I put it under the table. My dog lays under the table out of everyone's way on their mat.
You know what else is nice about that? Just to interject, because we are in a heat wave right now. I was working with the pup out on the deck yesterday, and I had my shoes off. And my feet were burning on the deck.
Right.
And I thought, if my feet are burning, your feet are burning too. You have more protection on your feet, but you're also a pup. I thought, we're going in the shade. So that same situation, those patios, the concrete, the concrete ground, it can get really warm.
Hot. Yes.
It can also get a little bit cold. So depending on what time of year it is, it's nice to have something to shelter them a little bit from that heat. Yes. I actually keep towels in my car for this exact reason. Yeah. So I have a couple of towels in my car, and you know, impromptu, I might end up at my nephew's baseball game. And of course, the dogs are with me. Levon's still learning, of course, right now at 14 weeks. But Ned is an old pro, and I'll just throw a towel down on the ground. I tell him, you know, on your bed. Right. And that's his bed for the moment. Right. So it's so handy.
It gives them a focus point.
Yeah. And it takes up no room in the car.
Right. Yes.
Easy to wash.
Yes. Yeah. And you never know when you need a towel too. You know, dogs get wet, dogs throw up, dogs. Yeah. So a towel is actually a really good idea.
I also carry paper towels in my car all the time for that exact same reason as well. But that's besides the point.
Right. You never know when you're going to need cleaning supplies with a dog.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. So yeah, I use it the same way. I like to transition from the crate. And of course, we highly recommend that anytime a dog is not reliable yet with their obedience, their chewing habits, their bathroom habits, etc., they're crated when you can't supervise them. So they're out when you are supervising, working with them, etc. And then when you, I got to go to the bathroom, I got to go have a shower, I got to go make a meal, I got to go do this, the dog goes back in the crate so that or the puppy goes back in the crate so that there's no chance of them getting into mischief, harming themselves, etc. while you are busy tied up with other things. It also prevents them from getting into mischief.
Right.
And rehearsing the wrong things. Like we spent a lot of time there talking about rehearsal and how important it is. If my dog learns that when I turn my back, they can chew the baseboards or steal things off the table or I sounded kind of like a seal there.
You did sound like a seal. Wait, I have a challenge for you. Okay. I have a challenge before
I throw down the gauntlet.
Our challenge intermission.
I take it.
I want you to hum, but plug your nose at the same time. You can't do it, can you?
No, that was funny. I was humming and then I pinched my nose.
Right.
I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know you could.
I just found out that you can't hum and pinch your nose.
Wow. If you knew that, let us know in the comments, because that's really funny. See, you learn something new every day.
Yes. I learned that this morning, and I'm done now learning for the day.
That's it. That's it. We can go back to bed.
Right. Although I did save a bee.
I did
save a bee. In our vestibule at work, there was a bee and a honeybee, and I walked up to him, and he put his little leg out to me. So of course, I had to give him human emotions, saying, "Help, save me!" So I got I got a paper towel and took him outside to a clover and put him on the clover, and he was wandering all around on that clover. I could tell he was getting nectar out.
You're very brave.
So yeah, I'm quite pleased with myself.
You're very brave that you weren't worried about getting stung.
No,
and you helped the bee.
No, when he put his little arm out, I thought, he's asking for me to get him outside. And we need bees.
Really
we need bees.
We do need bees. Absolutely.
I do have a far better appreciation and understanding of bees now as I'm older than I did when I was young.
Do you know what I heard them talking about on the news that really surprised me because it's sort of very trendy right now? Is the no mow May thing. Apparently, Apparently it is a big myth. If this news station was accurate,
I think I don't quite know the details, but I heard it's a myth as well.
They said that that's the equivalent of suggesting that the bees should eat McDonald's all of their life.
That's what it was.
It's not the nutrient value that they need. So you can pretend that you didn't hear this at all. You can pretend and go back to not mowing your lawn in May and for a good reason. But apparently it is not a good solution for bees. Who knew?
Right? Yeah. I saw a funny meme, and it was a man saying he's participating in No Mow May, and he shows his lawn, all overgrown with weeds, and he says, "For the pollinators." And then you go in his house, and he's got a big sink full of undone dishes, and he says, "For the pollinators." And then his undone laundry, "For the pollinators." So he was taking it to an extreme. Yeah. Everything was for the pollinators.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. Well, and I think that a lot of people have embraced it because it's like, you know what?
We want to do the right thing. We want to help. But yeah, I guess we'll hear more about that next May if it's the right thing to do.
We shall see. It only happens once a year. So,
Yep.
And May is already really important because of Star Wars Day.
Right. Yes.
There's other days.
May the 4th be with you.
Yeah, exactly. Alrighty. So back to dogs. We do digress. So that transitional point, it's we don't want to just let our dogs out of the crate and let them wander and do whatever they want because they don't necessarily have all the skills they need yet to be able to do that. So I'm talking about still a young dog. So Levon, for example, right now, at 14 weeks old, he's nowhere near ready to be loose in the house unsupervised. There's zero question about that in my mind. But I want to get ahead of things, and I want to create the skills that will allow me to transition to that because I want him to be loose in the house eventually. But I also want him to be calmly loose in the house eventually. Do you allow play in your house? Well, you said already. You have a little dog. Right. And you said already that you'll throw the toy in the house a few times.
It all depends on the dog if I allow play. If I have a wild and crazy and out of control dog, then no, that dog's going to have a far different set of rules than, say, my Sheltie, who was very calm and ladylike and demure for her whole life. So it all depends on the dog. Cowboy had no sense of what was around her.
Okay.
And if she got running through the house, we called it the cowboy train.
Yeah. Well, and she was a big dog.
Yes. And we'd say, get out of the way of the cowboy train because, she won't get out of your way. She knocked down my son when he was a toddler a few times. Her tail would sweep things right off the coffee table.
How much did she weigh?
She only weighed 48 pounds.
Okay. How tall was she?
She was just over 26 inches tall at the shoulder.
Tall. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So she was quite tall.
Sight hounds are very lean, though.
Right. So. Yes. And, so she had some far more strict rules because she didn't seem to have a sense of what was around her. No body awareness.
Gotcha.
So every dog for me has different rules as to their activity levels in the house.
Well, I never change breeds.
Or her underwear.
Or my underwear. We used to joke about that. But I do change my underwear, I swear. So after I got my Rottweiler, I changed breeds to Tollers.
Right.
The Rottweiler was actually a family dog. I loved her so much. She was a wonderful dog, but I wanted to do sports and things like that. And her body just wasn't set up to hold up to that. So I knew that I needed to move on from the Rottweiler, but I would have another one again if it wasn't for the fact that their bodies are a limitation. They're so much bigger, and she was in rough shape by the time she passed at 10, which is young. I mean, it's not young for a Rottweiler, but it's young for me because Tollers have longer life expectancy, and I've become accustomed to that and been really lucky, knock on wood, to have long-lived Tollers. But yeah, I don't change breeds. So I pretty much set my rules as they are. I keep saying that Levon breaks the mold a little bit because I feel like he's my fifth male toller. I should know exactly what's happening or what's exactly what to expect.
Right.
And there's a couple of things that were shocking, like his nipping, which I think I've talked about before. He was the worst nipper I have had since my Rottweiler, and that was kind of shocking. Nothing soft-mouthed about that dog at all, which is what I was expecting because all of my other male tollers have been fairly soft-mouthed, and I've had to really, build them up to get them to tug hard and things like that. Tug was a piece of cake with this dog, but working through the nipping was a little bit more of a challenge. So you just never really know what you're gonna get.
Never know.
Yeah.
No, there's...
Yeah, but my point is that I know I don't want them playing in the house. And I know that when Levon and Ned are loose together, I don't want them playing in the house. Right. My brain instantly goes to one of them knocking their head off the sharp edge of the coffee table, in the corner of the coffee table, like what you think with a toddler, right?
Right.
I also just like my house to be calm. My house is fairly simple. Right. I don't have a lot of stuff and clutter. I like things fairly minimalist.
Right.
And I like things calm in my house.
Yes.
But outside, let's rock.
Right.
I want the busy, the energy, the chaos. I want the dog that's ready to party and ready to do whatever activity I want to do. So I set the scene in both of those. I set the stage in both of those scenes.
Right. Yes.
And in the house, I do not encourage any sort of big play, which means that I don't get a lot of big play because, again, rehearsal counts for so much.
You shut it down when it starts.
Exactly. Yes. Absolutely. I encourage calm in the house. I actually have training space in my basement that I will go down and we'll have, party time. But otherwise, I have 12 acres, so I've got lots of space outside.
Yes.
I also have a shop on the property that I can use for some dog training stuff because same thing. Fairly minimalist, so there's room in there as well. And yeah, those are the places that I allow my dogs to party and have a good time, and we all party and have a good time together. But in the house, I use those things like the crate. The transition to the bed is huge for me because I can, not that I have my dogs constantly on the bed. That's not the point. But when my dogs start to get elevated and excited, I can say, nope, settle, go lie down, go to your bed. And it immediately deflates the situation. And it deflates it in a way that's not deflating for the dog.
Right, yes.
It takes the energy out of the scene in a way that the dog goes, sure, I can go to my bed because I've been taught what my bed is.
And my bed's a good place.
Exactly.
I'm not being banished to my bed because I'm naughty. I'm going to my bed and something good's going to happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then they usually do get a chew of some sort on the bed, or they have a chew already on the bed.
Right,
Because this is a situation that does get rehearsed, there's usually a nylabone or something laying around.
Right.
And the dog will have that available on their bed. It also gives me the ability to, when I do have multiple dogs in the house, it gives me the ability to calm the situation and get the dogs out of each other's hair.
Right.
And the rules on the bed are very specific. You're not allowed to bug another dog in the bed, just like you wouldn't be able to bug the other dog in the crate.
Right.
So I'm very clear about, as Levon comes up and as he learns how to be in the house, he's going to learn that when Ned is chewing on his bed, he's not allowed to go up to Ned and bug Ned. That's Ned's space. Ned gets to do whatever he wants on the bed. Levon won't be allowed to steal anything that Ned's chewing because I'm sure that'll come up at some point.
Right.
So I'm going to make sure that I'm watching for that and I can address that as it starts to happen. I basically just, if we put these things in place ahead of time, we have tools that we can use to stop bad behaviors from developing.
Right. Yes.
So, and
I also too, having my son Ty, I would say when the dogs are on their bed, Ty, you leave them alone. They're off limits now. So Cowboy's laying on her bed, pretend she's invisible. She's no longer in the room.
Yeah,
because
I love
the
that.
last thing you want is your child going up and pestering the dog or laying on the dog's bed, and now the dog's got no room, and now the
this is a really good thing. Let's talk about why.
Well, we want the dog to be calm on the bed, and we want the dog to feel relaxed.
Yes.
We don't want our dog laying on the bed going, Ty's coming over. Is he going to take my toy? Is he going to roll on top of me on the bed? Is he going to squish me off the bed? We want that dog to feel secure and safe and calm on the bed. So, I always told kids, I find with kids saying, pretend the dog's invisible is your best bet.
Yeah.
So I say, Ty, Cowboy is invisible when she goes
Cowboy
on
is
that
wearing
mat.
her invisibility cloak.
Yes,
Oh my
and
gosh,
it's
I
a
can't talk
place
today.
where you can't go. So
Yeah.
that's Cowboy's bed. You stay off it. I have to admit that Ty, because Cowboy had her own special mat, Ty wanted a special mat too. So, when kids are 2, what they
Of
can be
course,
like. So
absolutely.
Ty had a special spot that was his.
I
It
think
wasn't
that's
a mat.
awesome.
It was like a little kid's bed, a little kid's folding couch sort of
Okay.
thing. So that was his special spot, and we didn't allow Cowboy on it, and he wasn't allowed on Cowboy's.
Perfect.
And
I love
it
that.
worked well.
Yeah. It's so important that our dogs have an escape place because sometimes they get overwhelmed. And if we don't recognize that, we could put them in a situation where they have no recourse other than to act out.
Yes.
And that acting out might be a growl, it might be a bite, all of those things. If we push our dogs too far to the point where they're not having fun in a situation, like that can be really detrimental for them. So I want my dog to be able to say, you know what, there's a lot of noise in here right now. Maybe I have guests over and I don't often. I have a fairly quiet life at home. It's just me and my partner and the dogs. And, every once in a while I have somebody over, but
I was over for a charcuterie board once.
Yes, we enjoyed charcuterie. But yeah, like it doesn't happen a ton of times.
Right, yeah.
So it would be out of character and it would probably be overwhelming if I suddenly had, 3 or 4 house guests over for dinner or a whole bunch. Is that a whole bunch?
That's a whole bunch. It's a whole bunch. It's a lot of cooking.
And while I know that my current dogs would probably be fine with it and would be happy to be part of the action, it's possible that, if it's something like maybe they have a couple of kids that come with them and
Right.
kids aren't really part of my life anymore. My niece and nephew are 14 and 10, so they're not kids anymore. And maybe the dog gets overwhelmed and doesn't like what's going on in the situation. I want him to know, okay, I can go into my crate or I can go onto my bed and I'm not going to be bothered.
Right.
That's my safe spot. I'm going to be fine there. The rules are very, very clear with each dog in my house that you are not allowed to bother the other dogs while they're on their bed. And that's all there is to it.
Right.
There's no negotiation with that. I make
Right.
sure that I set those rules very early, and that gives my dogs an out. It gives them a safe space to go to should they ever feel like they're just not enjoying whatever is happening in that moment. They don't
Yes.
have to stick it out, and they don't have to be in that situation to the point where it becomes detrimental.
And we don't allow our dogs to work things out between each other
I
either.
love that you said that. Yeah.
We are the leader. We are in charge of the house, and we step in to work things out. So,
Actually, you know what? I want to talk about this for a second because this has been a really big theme in my life this past, month and 6 weeks. 6 weeks since Levon
Right,
came
yeah.
home. So Levon is a really rough player, and which I love. That's great. I'm thrilled to have this puppy who's like, yeah, I'm gonna fly at you to grab that toy with all my might, and we're gonna have this really raucous party, and life is wonderful. That's great. But I want to make sure that doesn't get imposed on anyone else.
Right.
So when I am supervising the 2 of them together, I'm the big heavy. Right? Ned is so tolerant of Levon to a fault. At the first meeting that they had, Levon was very soft and unsure about Ned. But then the second meeting, Levon was like, yeah, let's rock, buddy. And he went flying at him and bounced off his side. Actually one day last week, we were outside, we were walking together, and all of a sudden, Levon was on Ned's back. And it was probably about half a second because I instantly pulled him off, obviously. But I was like, you are bold little puppy. Oh my goodness. And Ned is just so tolerant. He just comes over to me and looks at me like, are you going to save me? Are you going to save me?
right, yeah.
So he's 7. He likes the pup, but
Yeah.
he's not interested in wrestling and
Right,
crashing and
right.
banging with the pup. He's interested in sniffing all the things, and Levon's running in and crashing and banging with
Right,
him.
yeah.
So
And that's one thing too is even Levon as a youngster loves to run and crash and bang, but that doesn't mean he's going to want to do that at 5,
No,
at 6
he
or
won't.
7. So
Yeah,
people
he
often
won't.
say, "Well, let the puppy play with the old dog. It'll bring spark back to the old dog." But you know what?
Yeah. And how old is the
56,
old dog?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't want to rough and tumble with a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
That would be too
Absolutely.
much. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's understandable if you think about, say you had an 11 or a 12-year-old dog. If you think about the age in relation to humans, usually at an average of 7 years or so, it's understandable to think that that 77-year-old man is not going to want to go on the football field with all the 15 to 20-year-olds and play tackle football.
Right.
You know, that's going to hurt.
Right. Exactly. Yes. So that's the same with our dogs.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I'm not waiting for Ned to, get in there and tell Levon off. I'm the big heavy.
Right.
It's me. It's my responsibility to tell Levon what's appropriate and what's not. And because of that, for the first about month that they were home, they spent no time together because the nipping was so bad. The nipping was so bad with Levon that I needed to make sure that I had that totally worked out and I felt really good about it before I let him go back and interact with Ned in any way, because I knew that Ned would be put in a position that wasn't comfortable and favorable for him. And the last thing I wanted him to do was actually take it into his own hands and tell the puppy off, because a lot of times the older dogs are tolerant until they're not. And then finally, when they've had enough, it's not a nice tell off. Not every dog is capable of telling off a puppy nicely. If you have a dog that is capable of that, that's great. But not all dogs are capable of that. Don't count on that. Don't rely on letting the dogs work it out. The leader needs to step in and say, hey, these are the rules. These are the rules.
As soon as you're not stepping in as the leader, now you've lost your status as the leader.
Yes.
And the puppy says, oh, look at me in charge of beating up this older dog.
Yeah.
Or the older dog says, well,
you're not saving me.
You're not saving
helping
me. I have to do it. So you're not the leader I thought you were.
Absolutely.
So you're really undermining yourself.
Yeah. And I will tell you, this bed stay has come in handier than anything else, because with Ned, I can say, go to your bed, and then I can work with Levon in the same room. So this is what happened during the month. It wasn't just, okay, I'm going to separate them for a month, and then I'm going to let Levon grow up, and then everything will be magically fixed. No. Levon needed skills. He needed to learn how to be called off of Ned. He needed to learn how to stay off of Ned when I said off, which obviously is still a work in progress. He needed to learn not to be bitey with Ned. Like, all of those things were skills that he needed to gain. He didn't have them. He had 13 litter buddies to play with.
Right.
So
and
that's
they just
why he
crawled
so
all
rough.
over each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Oh,
there was no rules.
Oh, crash and bang. And, I would watch them on webcam, and literally they would just, a puppy would be sleeping dead to the world in the middle of the pen, doing nothing, or off to the side of the pen, doing nothing at all that would offend or engage any other puppy. And all of a sudden, one of the puppies would go flying in, grab that puppy out of a dead sleep by the ear and start thrashing and shaking it around, and the puppy would wake up screaming. Like, they're just brutal. They're just brutal. There's so much crash and bang and fall and wrestle and so that's where he learned how to do that there, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. And if it's a mutual play style, that's fine. But Ned was not into that. So so that month I spent making sure that Ned could be in the room in the vicinity, and the puppy could learn appropriate skills around Ned. So I also wanted to make sure that the puppy learned to interact and play with me and not just want to be obsessed with Ned, because, of course, it's easy for him to be obsessed with Ned and want to play with Ned. It's a lot harder for me to build the relationship and the bond. So all of those things were things that I was very conscious of as the puppy was settling in, and as I was trying to mitigate the damage in relationship that would end up being caused if I let the puppy just constantly go at Ned, bite at Ned, et cetera, et cetera. So now he's at the point where he's, for the most part, he's settled a little bit more when it comes to interacting with Ned. He will chase, but then he doesn't jump and body slam. He kind of jumps alongside him. He's recognized that, I've used good timing to tell him off as he's jumping and trying to crash and bang in smaller circumstances in the house. And now we're at the point where we can be outside, the puppy dragging along line, Ned loose, of course, because he's very well trained at 7 years of age. And now we can work through these things very, very easily because Levon has these skills, right? And I can call his name and get him to turn off of Ned at this point, which is such a crucial
That was it.
thing.
And I saw that today when actually he was coming to visit. I had just been playing with him, and then you called him from me, and he turned on a dime.
I was so excited.
Turned on a dime. It was such a great.
I've been working so hard.
Yes.
Thank you. I've been working really, really hard on his response to name, because that's a really important skill to
and
me.
we had been really playing too. Like I was very guilty of doing probably too much fun roughhousing housing with Shannon's puppy.
But I loved having the opportunity. I was
right,
like, I'm gonna see. This is an appropriate time to test.
Right. Yeah. And, I stopped playing with him and he was still looking at me like, are you playing more? And then he heard Shannon's call and boom.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's like, it sounds like a little thing, but it's huge.
It's a huge thing.
It's a lot of work. It's a culmination of a lot of work. And I want him to be able to turn off of any distraction for the entirety of his life. So we have been working incredibly hard on that. And it's so nice to start seeing skills coming together. Pups and young dogs, they're so brilliant if we give them the opportunity to make the right choices. But of course, if we just set them loose in the room and go, okay, good luck.
Right.
They're going to make choices that align with dog choices, right? Ned's first choice, Levon's first choice when it came to Ned was run up to him and grab his tail and pull out feathers. Run up to him, grab his ear, and try to pinch a hole in that thing.
Right.
That was his goal. And I wouldn't have been surprised if he could. My goodness, he had quite the nipping.
And Ned didn't ask for a puppy.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, Instructor Steve always says that. Ned didn't, your other dogs didn't ask for a puppy, you did.
You asked for the puppy.
Yeah,
so yes,
absolutely.
This is your responsibility, not the older dog's responsibility.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know what else I've been very conscious of with Ned is making sure that he gets lots of special time as well, because it's not often that I've had a single dog household, but after losing Reggie and I was still on a puppy list waiting for the toddler litter that I was waiting to be born, I ended up having just the one dog for it was almost 8-9 months, almost a year.
Right.
Can't even think now. But it's not often that I'm without multiple dogs.
Right.
So Ned got used to being the center of the world. He really did. Right. Everything was about him. Every walk was about him. Every outing was about him. I mean, my dogs always accompany me on lots of, on most of my adventures anyways, but it became all about Ned. And then the puppy came home and I didn't want to make Ned feel like he wasn't part of the action anymore. And I didn't want him to be resentful of losing the time, etc. So I made sure that I spent a lot of time making special time with Ned.
Right.
Still training with Ned, still doing things with Ned that Ned enjoys and giving him that, that opportunity to still be part of a big part of life as opposed to being put on the shelf, which sometimes has to happen when you have a puppy. There are a lot of work. A lot of work, but really important. Alrighty. So second dog in the house, definitely, if you want that off switch, if you want to be able to create that calmness in the house, you need to have skills to do so. Just putting the dog and the puppy together initially and letting them, party is only going to create a situation where you have two adult dogs partying, or potentially, if it doesn't go swimmingly, if you don't have two dogs that love to play with each other, it could create resentment. So nice to have. To have good skills, off switches, etc. Do you have other skills that you rely on for an off switch?
Well, the crate is a great way to encourage the off switch too. If my dogs are getting rowdy in the house or the doorbell rings and I know it's going to be chaotic, then I'm going to use my crate too, because when they're on their mat, but I am keeping a bit of an eye because I know that they could leave the mat, maybe sneak out a door if kids are coming in and out. But the crate is an excellent complete off switch tool. Yeah. You go in there and you chill, and I'm not afraid to use the crate. Even the other day we were carrying some stuff in and out of the house, and the door was propped open. Okay. And Honda doesn't hear anymore, so I can't call him back. So I thought, you know what? He's going in his crate because I need him to be at his calmest, not to get under our feet, and not to slip out that door possibly.
To ensure that he's safe.
Right. So at any age, a crate will come in definite handy.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Yes. I want to talk about transitions for a minute, because I think this is something that a lot of the times gets missed in a training program, and it's so important, and it's something that I've already been working a ton with the puppy, and he's gotten pretty good at this. I love this. So by transitions, I mean going from calm to excited, right, to calm to excited to calm. Too excited,
right? So are you talking fun about like a settle command? The settle command.
Play and settle is a big one. Tug and out. Yep. For me, tug and out is huge for creating that transition. Right. And a lot of the times people go, "Oh, I don't want to play with my dog because then he gets too ramped up." And if that's the mentality, you are never going to be able to master calming them down when they do get ramped up, because at some point Even if you try your best to keep them calm and you never move above a snail's pace in hopes that it'll keep your dog calm or your puppy calm, at some point they're going to get excited about something. So what I like to do is I like to get in front of that and teach my dogs that you can get excited, but then when I say settle or when I say out, whatever the situation warrants, out would be with a toy, of course. When I say settle, you just need to bring your energy down in that moment. And the more they practice that transition, the easier it gets for them.
Yes.
You know?
Definitely.
So I have these scenarios with the pup where I will say, I'm going to get you. That's my playtime command.
Yeah. I think I've used that one too. Yeah.
I no longer just say playtime, which is the official official McCann command for playtime is playtime and then have some fun. I say, I'm going to get you. So when I say...
I've even said, when I get you, I'm going to eat you.
Oh my gosh. I say that to the puppy all the time. Yeah. I say, when you're full grown, you're going to be such good eating. As soon as you're done being grown to eat, you're going to be tasty. Oh, that's so funny. Okay, we don't really eat puppies. No. Disclaimer, no puppies were eaten to make this podcast. So I'll say to Levon, I'm going to get you. And I lean down. So my body language becomes like really playful and really fun. And I have a little party with him. I let him chase me. Of course, this is also a good opportunity to work out the teeth and what's appropriate in play, because I have an opportunity to say, this is great play. We're having fun. Oh, that's not appropriate. And I can end the play at that point if he uses teeth or anything that I don't like. You know what? And it can be anything I don't like. If I didn't want him barking in play, if I didn't want him jumping on me in play. And the rules are up to you. You can create whatever rules you want in your playtime, but it's an opportunity to teach the dog. Yes. Don't avoid, don't avoid putting them in hyper states, because they're going to put themselves in hyper states. And then you won't be able to control it when they are there. Right. If you get in front of it and you teach them that off switch, it is going to make a huge difference in your life. And the pup's already great at dropping the toy when I say out. And then we've been working really hard where now I can wiggle the toy around his head and he'll just sit there waiting until I say get it before he grabs it. So he's practicing emotional control. Yes. He's practicing that transition from calm to excited to calm. I'm going to start that again. I'll stop before I go too far.
So it's impulse control too. It's that impulse.
Exactly. And if we don't practice teaching them how to have impulse control and how to tap into impulse control, then we end up in a situation where we don't know how to control it when it just happens naturally with them. And it will. Yes. It will. You're never going to keep them completely suppressed.
Like, I know when that doorbell rings, chaos can ensue. Now, he doesn't hear it anymore. So actually, it's kind of like, come visit. Ring the doorbell. Nothing's going to happen.
Everybody come ring Swanee's doorbell.
But when I had multiple hearing dogs, oh my goodness. And I could just yell out, hey, settle, settle. And the dogs knew to settle, and I'd send them to their beds. Yeah. Now, that took some training, and then I'd go and answer the door. Or I might bring one dog to the door if I'm not sure who's at the door with me, just for that dog presence at the door. But
I don't have a doorbell anymore. I only have the sound of the gravel when... delivery trucks or people or whoever pull onto my driveway. So now that's the sign that the dogs doorbell react to, which is so funny. And when it's a delivery person, I always let the dogs bark. I do not mind one bit people thinking, oh, there's a dog in that house. Yes. I want my dogs to bark. Part of having a dog is having a watchdog. Right. Yep. So I will let them bark until I have seen that the delivery person is there and ready, and then I will go to collect the package, and I tell them quiet at that point, and they all quiet at that point, of course.
Yeah, I same thing. I like people knowing I have a dog. In fact, at my back door, I have a dog bowl that I never use, but I want, if anyone gets in my yard, I want them to say, oh, there's a dog in this house. And it's a far bigger dog bowl than Honda would use for drinking, too.
Because if anyone actually saw either of our dogs,
they go, oh my gosh, so cute. Yes. So I have a big empty water bowl at the back door. And
I love that. That's clever.
It's just for a bit of presence that if someone got in there, they'd say, there's a dog bowl here. Yes.
Oh my gosh. All righty. Well, I think that was a fun episode.
It was.
On that note, I'm Instructor Shannon.
Instructor Swanee. And Honda.
Honda's crashed out on the couch.
He is.
Sweetheart.
Yes.
Happy training, everybody.
The McCann Dogs Podcast is brought to you by McCann Professional Dog Trainers. We help dog owners to have a well-behaved, four-legged family member. Please give us a call at 659-1888 or visit us at mccandogs.com. Happy training!